Oh, good afternoon. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is reconvening on Bill 370-35 COR from recess on Tuesday, July 28th. Today is Monday, August 3rd, and the time now is 2:00 p.m. Notice and reminder for this recess were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media outlets. Initially, it was on that Tuesday, the 28th, and then Thursday it was reissued. The committee will hear and accept testimonies specifically on Bill 370-35 COR, sponsored by authored by Senator Regine Biscoli, co-sponsored by Senator Sabina Flores Perez and Senator Clinton Rigel, an act to amend Section 26110.1 of Chapter 26, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring the electronic filings of monthly returns for business privilege tax and further requiring the Department of Revenue and Taxation to provide notice of the same to the public and to taxpayers. I'd like to acknowledge the senators, my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon. I have the author of the bill, Senator Regine Biscoli, to my right. Down below, I'll start out with Senator Tello Taitigui, the minority leader. And then moving on to Senator Kelly Mars Taitno and Senator Sabina Perez. Reminder of the general rules for this public hearing. Those testifying on behalf of the bills we recognize. We have Ms. Daphne Sims, the director, who we've invited back and why we recessed so we can hear testimony from her. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with written testimony for photocopying. Testimony may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes, but we'll allow you all the time you need, Ms. Shimizu. And my colleagues, just be advised that her written testimony will be submitted to our office. She has it in draft form. There's still some things that she needs to add on, but she'll give a general statement to the testimony today. You will be allowed to present oral testimony, and when you're done, we ask that you remain in the room for question or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. You would state your name and the title for the record. Senator Lee, would you like to discuss anything of your bill before Ms. Shimizu testifies? Ma'am.
Sidos Mahasi, Mr. Chair, and Hafaday colleagues. I want to begin by thanking you, Chairman Agustin, for agreeing to hear this bill. I would also like to thank my colleagues who have co-sponsored this piece of legislation, Senator Sabina Flores Perez, who's with us today, and Senator Clint Rigel. I'd like to thank our stakeholders for their support of this bill and to the Department of Revenue and Taxation, led by Director Mansapit Shimizu, who's here, and other businesses and stakeholders who've reached out to our office in support of this measure. Bill number 370-0. The ongoing pandemic must be met with continued efforts to support social distancing. Eliminating the manual filing of business privilege taxes will help reduce crowding at DRT and will lessen in-person contact between employees and customers. This measure also requires that DRT provide adequate notices of the change to businesses upon their monthly BPT filing, and in no fewer than 19 public spaces like shopping centers and government offices. If enacted as introduced, the mandatory electronic filing of BPT will begin on October 20th, 2020. I would like to note for the record that this measure does not require online payments, so business owners that are concerned with associated fees can continue to pay in person at the Treasurer of Guam if they so choose. Especially during these challenging times, we must do what we can to help businesses stay afloat. And at this time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to read into the record testimony from Mr. Carlo De La Cruz, owner of Grasshopper Inc., in support of 370, if that's okay. And this was received by you, Mr. Chair, on July 20th, 2020. Hafaday, Chairman San Agustin, thank you very much for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of Bill 370-35 COR. My name is Carlo De La Cruz, and I'm one of the owners of Grasshopper Inc. As a local business owner, I support initiatives that seek to create a better environment for business on Guam. As Bill 370 proposes, I believe that it's high time that we require the electronic filing of monthly business privilege tax returns. I have found this process to be convenient and easy. It helps to eliminate the need to stand in long lines in the hot sun, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And as we've witnessed with the effects of this pandemic, our island has shifted to contactless procedures to keep everyone safe. The requirement for businesses to e-file their BPT returns helps to do just that. Mr. Chairman, I sincerely hope that members of this committee favorably consider Bill 370, and I urge our senators to vote in its favor. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide testimony. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Respectfully, Carlo De La Cruz, Grasshopper Inc. Mr. Chair, during this COVID-19 emergency, moving government services online makes sense for the health of our community. By making this change to how BPT is filed, we can also help businesses save precious time and resources while further improving tax collections during a depressed economic period and beyond. Mr. Chair, I'll also note that some of the issues that we've had in the past in terms of business privilege taxes and all taxes in general is, sometimes when they're filed manually, there is a little bit of a lag, and there is a little bit of there's some human error that may occur when this information is being transferred from the manual paper return to the automated system. And so it's my hope that this bill, should it pass, will help to eliminate some of that human error, will help to really just encourage better efficiency overall in the way that we process our business privilege taxes. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I thank you very much, and I look forward to the feedback from our community and our stakeholders. Sizu Ismasi.
Thank you, Senator Lee. And I'll ask now Ms. Daphne Shimza, the Director of Department of Revenue and Taxation, to begin her testimony.
Hafa and thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I'm Daphne Shimizu, and I am the Director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. And I'm here to provide testimony on Bill 370-35. Hafa Senator Agustin and members of the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, Housing. Bill number 370-35 amends Section 26110 of Chapter 26, Title 11 of the Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring the electronic filing of business privilege tax returns. This bill would require the expenditure of additional funds for public notices to augment an educational program regarding online filing, as well as to provide computer kiosks and support staff to assist taxpayers' use of mandated computer kiosks, ideally located at both our main and any future satellite offices. We support all efforts that facilitate use of adaptive technologies to streamline payments and processes here at the department, especially given the health emergency work environment that we have today. The department would like at this time to raise a few points which we believe will be critical to ensure the sustainability and success of this measure. As you know, taxpayers are assessed a convenience fee when making credit card payments, and it will be important for the applicability of this convenience fee to be addressed. Also, language about how to address those taxpayers who do not file or pay their taxes online, i.e. those who file either in person or via mail, has to be addressed, as well as whether there should be certain exceptions allowed for those taxpayers who may be unable to file online. It is important to note that there are taxpayers who file electronically and make payments in person. This duplication of efforts does constrain and overwhelm staff who manually processes tax forms. Lastly, there may be additional system programming which will be required in order to implement this measure for all BPT filings, which may not allow for this measure to be implemented by the proposed October 2020 implementation date. Thank you, Senator Agustin and members of the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing for this opportunity to submit testimony on Bill 370-35. Please feel free, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer those.
All right, Ms. Shimizu. Let me just go back a little bit on your testimony. Are you in support of the intent
Correct. We do support, of course, the move to try to do things online because, of course, in this case where we're having this, most especially during this public health emergency. But also, I think that to Senator Lee's point as well, for efficiency, because when things are filed online, when BPT returns are filed online, that information is already it's already updated into our system. So there isn't a need for manual data entry, and so that's something, of course, that will, in terms of efficiency, help our agency.
Okay, so you don't really see any problems with it. Okay. Senator Lee, do you have any questions of Ms. Shimizu?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And sorry, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I'll just remove my mask. I'm a little bit muffled. Thank you very much, Ms. Shimizu, for being here, for providing the testimony. I know that towards the end of your statement, you were recommending, or you might have challenges with the October 2020 date. So if you could provide the committee with another date that might be more reasonable for DRT to be able to comply, that would be helpful so that we can, possibly consider that as an amendment to the bill. Is there one that you have in mind?
At this time, we don't have an actual date, but October 2020 is just kind of around the corner. So our concern is that we may not be able to do the programming. So basically what it is for, there are actually certain filings like amended returns and also filings which require attachments that currently cannot be done online. And we're going to have to engage our IT vendor so that we can make sure that we can accommodate those. And so that's something. The other thing is, of course, the procurement and that's going to be related to the kiosks that we're going to be working to put into place. And we believe that that's absolutely going to be essential, especially for those taxpayers who don't have access to internet or to computers so that they could do this.
Would you consider maybe an additional 60 or 90 days sufficient?
Perhaps maybe, Senator, even if it were, maybe that would be sufficient. So if we were saying October, November, December, so perhaps even a January 1, perhaps implementation might work at this time. We'll get back to you on that, but we're confident that October 2020 will be challenging for us at this time.
Right, and as you were mentioning, Daph, and I know that during discussions of introducing this bill, we spoke to DRT about looking to opening these kiosks or other assistive services to filers with difficulty filing BPT online. Is this still possible? And I know you're talking a little bit about the procurement of those items to be able to do that. So again, with that, the January 2021 timeline, would that be enough time?
Thank you, Senator. We're hopeful that it is. We're already in the midst of really, we've been working to evaluate our current systems just to determine how we might be able to assist. Because, I think what we're seeing is that, there are a lot of our people in our community that don't have access to computers and technology. So we've already been looking at this type of opportunity. It's not like it's something that we haven't already been looking at. So again, we're hopeful that January would be a good time frame for us. If we have any challenges, we'll advise, but at least for now, just so that there's an additional time. But we know October 2020 will be a little bit challenging.
Understood. And Dav, if you could just for the record, maybe give us an idea of what percentages of taxpayers currently are filing their BPTs online.
Okay. It's a little bit difficult to tell, at least the current year, but we were looking at some prior year data. And if I could just really quickly look at that, hold on just a second. So the most complete data we really have is probably 2017 and 2018 tax years. And in terms of 2017 and 2018 tax years, it looks like we have an average monthly, on an average month, we have about 12,000 online filers for BPT. And that actually exceeds the number of manual filers that we have. Again, maybe for, for example, 2017, where we're showing over 140,000 online filers, and we're calling them online filers, but I believe that this is, what this represents is Each line, so like as individual taxpayer, a BPT on a BPT form may have multiple lines that are reported. So in terms of the number of lines filed, where there was 140,000 in 2017 that were online, we had just shy of 110,000 manual filers. So, I mean, in 2017, we were seeing already our online filers were higher than our manual filers. Our numbers for 2019 and 2020 in 2018 are still kind of needing to be updated, so it's difficult to provide good data on that, but that was in 2017. And of course, we're anticipating that we'll be seeing, of course, more people file online going forward. We're definitely seeing it on the Form 1040 side, where we're seeing more people file online their Form 1040s than we were in the past.
Thank you very much, Daphne. And Mr. Chair, I just have one additional question. Dav, I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to take a look at the fiscal note on this bill, but BBMR did submit a fiscal note, and I just wanted to get some of your feedback on that. I know you were discussing earlier about, I certainly want to acknowledge the upfront investment that we're making now, but I think that should this bill pass, the dividends that we will, or the amount of money that we will save in the future, and really emphasizing the efficiency and, increasing efficiency and decreasing human error. There was a dollar figure, I believe it was $125,000 associated with this bill. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of discuss that for the committee.
Absolutely, and thank you again, Senator. BBMR and DRT did work together in order to work to develop this, the fiscal note for this particular bill. Included in the bill are, of course, the public notices, which was required. Also, something that we believed would be important is an educational outreach program. What's going to be important in terms of sustainability of any type of program is making sure that people are educated on how to use the system. Some things that we had talked about at DRT, not just in conjunction with BPT filings, but with our other online filings that we're of course working to expand, is that perhaps we would work to develop tutorials so that people can log on to our website, click on a little tutorial, and be able to play it so that they can see how to file online, because of course we already do have the ability to do vehicle registrations online, to do business license renewals online, to file certain 1040s online. It's just a matter of making sure, again, that people are educated. And I think what we found is that, like in my experience, when I've talked with people, for example, who've done their business licenses online, renewals online, and done their vehicle registrations online, they've said it's really fast. And so, again, sometimes there's a little bit of apprehension and fear because people may not be familiar. But, we felt it would be important for us to make sure that we educate our people. So there is some monies that we had indicated that would be needed for educational outreach. We also indicated and put in the fiscal note that there would be a need for computers, printers, and supplies, so that way we would have those that were available, and also for somebody who's going to be able to man the station. And we were thinking in terms of not just having this done at our Barrigada main office, but we also had allocated an additional headcount and perhaps even some equipment in the event that we're able to have a satellite office, so that people can not only do it at Barrigada, but they can go to a satellite office if there was a future satellite office. We also put into the fiscal note monies that is going to be needed for some programming support, as I mentioned earlier, in order to be able to accomplish the BPT filing online across the board. There is going to be some programming that's needed because, again, like for those filings that require attachments, that's not able to be done online yet, and any amended returns are not able to be done online. So those are things that we're looking into. So if we want to truly be able to have all of these done online across the board, there's going to be a need for that. And those were the monies that we had proposed, and we believe that would be needed in order to accomplish this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shimizu. And also, I just want to note that over $100,000 of this BBMR estimate was slotted for 2 full-time employees. And so I know that in our previous discussions, you were mentioning that there was an opportunity to use existing staff to man these kiosks, so existing employees. So I just wanted to clarify that. I was kind of caught off guard by that.
So we did indicate that we would need additional staff. Of course, at this time, we've had to kind of change the way that we are operating and make sure that we have people that are, also manning our doors as well as inside as well, working to do our regular, day-to-day duties. So we did allocate an additional person here. I mean, if it's not possible, of course, we'll do our best to try to figure out how we might be able to allocate resources. It's not unusual to detail somebody temporarily to a certain position if there's a need. And then perhaps, as things progress and maybe people become a little bit more familiarized with this process, maybe there may be the ability to pull back on that area. But that's something that we had talked about. I mean, again, we're just always concerned if there is an additional task that there may be a need for additional headcount.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Sabina, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Daphne, for being here and testifying on this bill. Can you talk a little bit more about the convenience fee aspect? What were some of the reservations or the needs to carry online filing?
Sure, and thank you, Senator Perez. As I indicated, I know that in this particular bill, and Senator did mention that for those individuals who wanted to file online, that the convenience fee, that this measure wouldn't require online payments, and so they wouldn't have to be concerned about the convenience fee, and they could still continue to pay at the treasurer. Of course, we actually right now do actually see people who file online or taxpayers who file online, but then they pay at the treasurer. And I believe ultimately our goal is to try to get it to be where people both file and pay online. When you file and pay online, there isn't that additional piece of paper that needs to be routed from the treasurer, transmitted to our accounting group, and then transmitted to BPT. So, anytime there's an additional there's a paper that has to be stamped, routed, it causes a little bit of inefficiency. And what we do, of course, on our side is we do scan and we, have to file in store paper. So, although this measure may not necessarily address it, of course, we believe that it's important that the issue of the convenience fee be addressed, just because, again, I think for the future, and it may not be at this point, but definitely for the sustainability of moving or having measures that would require anything to be online, it's important that there is, that at least the addressing of that issue of payment and perhaps how that will apply here. Again, we're just trying to make sure that, it's clear that, there is still additional manual work that's involved when people do file online and then pay at the treasurer.
So it may require a little duplication if there wasn't a payment online, but you're working towards that. Is that correct? I believe that the convenience fee is actually mandated in terms of the transfer or the of that convenience fee to the taxpayer, and not just for BPT, of course, for the taxes or anything that's paid online at pay.guam.gov. And so, again, I think that in terms of the sustainability of this and any measure, or trying to move toward, purely online, that somehow needs to be addressed. And that, I don't have a recommendation on it, but I believe that, again, just the idea of it, again, it's difficult, I think as a taxpayer, and I think if you think about it pragmatically, if I was to file online and then, take a paper and then go to Treasurer Guam, it may not be as efficient as just being able to just do everything in a single sitting. Although there are still taxpayers that wish to perhaps maybe not pay by credit card or debit card, but want to pay actually by check. I know there are taxpayers who wish to do that too. So, again, just kind of, trying to address that we believe will be important.
Yeah, just to let you know, the speaker and myself, we introduced two separate bills that kind of address some of the shortfalls in regards to automation. So we're looking forward to your testimony then. But in regards to the cost, is there still monies available in CARES funding to assist with the online filing of BPTs?
I know that with regards to the coronavirus relief budget that was provided to the legislature by BBMR a few months ago, there was some monies that was allocated to the Department of Revenue and Taxation to help to, I guess, address online and other enhancements that needed to be done. So there was some monies allocated in that coronavirus relief budget for some efforts. And, of course, and that's something that we're, doing our best right now to identify and work. We've been working with the Office of Technology to identify enhancements and to figure out how we might be able to best use those monies.
Okay, thank you, Director Shimizu. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Kelly, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Sujuis Masi, Mr. Chair, and Sujuis Masi to the Director for being here. Your testimony has been very helpful, as are the answers that you're providing. So I was pleased to see this bill going up for a public hearing today. And overall, for such measures, I support modernizing, updating, and allowing for the social physical distancing and contactless procedures, not just for now, but going into the future for a variety of reasons. It does seem that for some of it, and especially as it evolves over time, it's going to be simpler for some, less time, cut down on lines, and that may even help others of us who are conducting other business with DRT to have shorter lines for us as well. So I see a lot of positives in this. And a lot of my questions have been asked and answered. But I do still have a few. So if you could talk about the costs of the kiosks and the benefits to the overall picture. So you had mentioned both satellite offices, kiosks. Is this something that you're hoping is going to be a permanent fixture? And is this going to make DRT more accessible in some ways? If you could just speak to the kiosks for this bill specifically and how that will benefit in that overall picture of what's going on at DRT and filing for these BPT taxes.
Absolutely, and Sujuis Masi, Senator Marsh Taituno, for that question. So regarding the kiosks, I believe that they would really serve multiple purposes. One, of course, I think as we're seeing right now, that there are actually members of our community, even businesses, that don't have access to computers, printers, et cetera. Of course, the idea would be, I think that for anybody who's filed who has renewed their business license online or done their vehicle registration online, you'll find that you get a PDF of your vehicle registration and you get a PDF of your business license. So the idea is that, we wouldn't have to print too much at the kiosks, but that, you would be able to get a PDF. I think that, in particular, maybe two issues will be addressed. One is the issue of those, again, businesses who don't have access to internet and or a computer. And the other is educational. I think that, and perhaps, I think some of the things we talked about at our agency was, perhaps this vision of having, an individual there who would not only be just a GRT technical person, but who would also be able to assist people and to probably serve as our own tutorial, like a live tutorial, in case that people have questions, about how to do it. And the idea would be that, for those people that do have access to internet and to computers, when they come in, maybe they may only need to come in a couple times before they're able to kind of do it on their own, either on their, their iPad or their computer at home, or maybe at a mayor's office, because I know our mayors are also working to get availability of computers that are at their offices. So again, perhaps it serves multiple purposes. One is in terms of education, so that people people can go there, ask questions. And the other thing is also, again, just be able to provide for those people who don't have access to internet or a computer.
Sujuis Masi para now. And you touched on a couple of things that I was really interested in. You know, across the nation, probably across the globe, we're really learning a lot about the digital divide. And within our community, very much so, there's that digital and other divide. And so it's very good to see the mayor's offices, the public libraries, and places like DRT, the Department of Labor. They've done a very good job at thinking about how to reach out, GDOE as well, of course, and how to start helping people bridge that digital divide, because going forward, we just have to help all of our community have access. We need to be able to modernize as an entire island, as an entire community, and we're really going to have to figure these things out. So it's good to hear that you're thinking about these kiosks in that way, and that you're also recognizing that those other resources like the mayor's offices, the libraries, can assist in this, and you don't have to be a lone ranger in a sense. But it's one of those things that I'm really appreciating, the more and more that our agencies are working together and helping each other, and then being there for our community. So that part sounds very good. And with the educational process that you outlined, that I think because Department of Labor did such a good job, that was immediately what came to mind for me as well, having those educational videos and having those in-person opportunities to walk people through situations. So I think you have a very good model there, and it sounds like that's the route that DRT might be taking as well. Will going this route also help track down BBT tax reporting issues? I mean, are there often issues? Will filing electronically, it sounds like it's going to be more error-free in the transmission from it being from paper to getting into DRT's computers. But do you think that this might help in other ways, just tracking issues down?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, for taxpayers who, you know, and we see taxpayers who may come to our office who request for copies of their BBT returns. The great thing about, you know, filing it online and paying it online as well is that you can get a copy, or you have the PDF copies of them. You can log in online and you can actually look at your history. Of course, we recommend that people, you know, save the PDFs on their own computers, or on their own files, so that they also have those. But you know, there's that immediate, like, they have the copy and they don't have to come back to Rev and Tax to get those. So I think that's a great benefit to the taxpayer. You know, a lot of times, and of course, with regards to taxes, you know, it really is, you know, at the taxpayer is really kind of tasked with, if the records are, we are not able to find the records, with trying to find those. So this helps, again, in terms of taxpayers, absolutely, to have those available at their fingertips, you know, as they need. So I think that this will be very helpful, you know, on the taxpayer side, but also, I mean, on the DRT side as well. As I mentioned, that once the taxpayer files their BPT online, it's already entered into the system. There's no manual transmission or data entry that's required, as opposed to if they file it, whether they file at the Treasurer of Guam because there's a payment, or they file at our counter with a hard copy. If they file at the Treasurer of Guam, there's a need for that payment to be entered at the Treasurer of Guam, and then transmitted over to our accounting department, and then transmitted from accounting to our BPT section so that the data can be entered. You know, going this route would eliminate a lot of the kind of the paperwork, kind of the paper pushing that's required at this time, and so that absolutely would be very helpful for us.
So just Masi for outlining that, because I could really see the efficiency there, and I love always being able to have records, right? And if they're digital, they can fit neatly in your computer, and you can store them away, and you can keep thousands of them over time. So I really appreciate that ability as well, that they will easily be able to have records at their fingertips as well. Now, because I've been through learning to work with computers since dot matrix days, with printers, and the older language when you had to type in a paragraph in order to get point A to touch point B. Computers have grown quite a bit and come a long way. But I do also think about with power and internet outages. So I would imagine there would be some sort of policy you had talked about, maybe having some exceptions or some allowances. So of course, my mind went through the possibility if there are power outages or internet outages around that time, that this is something that could probably happen at the DRT policy level that would allow for some additional filing time or some sort of exception. What do you think? Is that something that needs to be done at the DRT level?
And we actually indicate that perhaps there may be a need for some type of exception for those individuals, perhaps that where there's extreme hardship. I know it's difficult. It's difficult to require something across the board, especially when there are taxpayers who may not be mobile, may not be able to get to rev and tax. There may be issues like that. We don't have like a comprehensive list of all the potential exceptions, but we're just contemplating that there may be a need for that, or perhaps if not exceptions, but maybe a phase-in period. So, people are given the opportunity over, 3 months or 6 months to prepare themselves so that they're capable. And again, we don't have that comprehensive list, but we're contemplating that there may be, again, some taxpayers, and we didn't, sometimes, again, perhaps you bring up a great point about power outages, or even perhaps even like typhoons and other acts of nature. But the reality is there are some hardships, for example, where people have extreme medical issues. They're not able to, for whatever reason, log in and make and file. I don't know, but we wanted to make sure that there was some provision, because this would actually require them to file online. And so then if they don't, what will happen? And are there exceptions to that? And perhaps there may not be any exceptions, and maybe there is an allowance, and the director is given some level of discretion to address as it's needed. And again, that's something perhaps that will need to be discussed amongst the body.
So, Juice Masi, for walking us through some of that thought process. I definitely was here when we went through months and months and months of load shedding, and still had to try to carry on our daily lives and responsibilities. And I know that you're very thoughtful. I know the author of this bill is very thoughtful. So I'm sure that you guys will figure out what approach is going to work the best, whether it's phasing in and at what level the exceptions may need to occur. So Juice Maasi, Mr. Chair, for letting me ask those questions.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Tello, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Sijus Masi. And buenas and hafadi. How you doing, Daphne? It's good to see you.
Very good. Thank you, Senator. Nice to see you too.
And I'm happy that you were able to take some time. Of course, this was scheduled for last week, and appreciate you coming here today to provide your testimony. I wish I had the testimony in front of me, because you mentioned some things. I don't think I heard that you're in full support of it, because you've had so many changes in your testimony. So before you leave, I'd like to get a copy of your testimony to review it. I'm a great fan of technology and moving forward and finding ways that we can be more fiscally responsible, not just responsible, but being able to take that dollar and stretch it to 10 kind of thing scenario. But of course not at the jeopardy or the hardship of our people. And my greatest concern about this bill was, forcing individuals to pay. Filing is one thing online, which, I do. I file my GRTs, and whatever I do, I file online. However, when it comes to paying out, I go down and I make payment at Treasurer Guam. And I know that, Daphne, to be able to use your card online, it's an additional cost, to the individual taxpayer. And, providing more hardship on our people during a time like this it's going to be difficult. But, you want to balance everything out, and I'm glad that the comments that you made in your testimony was to ensure about the kiosk, to ensure that the duplication. You talk about duplication earlier, that you don't want to do that. There are a lot of people who like that hard copy, stamped copy that they filed their GRTs, because if anything should get lost in the computer or cyber world, or something shuts down, I'm sure you have a lot of safety mechanisms in place, but the older people like that hard copy to prove that, no, I did pay my GRT. But allowing that, I think it's important still. I really don't think the timeline it's very short, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And I even think that January may be very difficult too, considering this initiative is going to cost some funding, will require more individuals to oversee this to make sure it's done right. And I don't know if you had an opportunity to read BBMR's fiscal note on this. You did. So you see the 125,000, and moving forward, if there's any vacancies, I know that the good chair of OFB has concerns of funding any vacancies as we go into 2021 because of the difficulty. We're all in the crisis that we're in. So we have to be very frugal this year. So that's why I'm thinking, maybe in your testimony, if you would like to add additional testimony based on our questions that we had here today, it'd be greatly appreciated. Any other ideas so that you may have. But the duplication, it could be an issue, but still, you're still doing the same thing is what I'm trying to say here. But one thing for sure is that any additional hardship on the taxpayer to make them pay more because they have to pay online, that's a concern. That's a big concern. So other than, I'll go ahead and, I know I said a lot, but go ahead if you'd like to comment.
Sujos Masi, Senator Tadegui, as I mentioned earlier, and I think the chair mentioned, our written testimony was in draft format, but I'll make sure that we send this off to the chair this afternoon, and we'll have that available to all the members of the legislature, so you can review our testimony, and then if there are other questions, absolutely we're available to answer those. If you still have questions after reviewing our testimony.
Okay, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be able to ask these questions, and it's great when we have the directors here, to help us guide us through this. So I appreciate your time and the energy you spent on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lee, you have any other questions or comments you want to make before I do my wrap up of questions that I will ask Ms. Shimizu? Ma'am?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate for all of my colleagues and for those listening that, we've made it very, very clear at the beginning of this hearing that paying online is optional. Paying online is optional. So the notion that this would create some kind of hardship for people, I really want to dispel that just at the forefront. I think we want to be very clear that everyone who reads this bill understands that it's the filing of monthly BPT returns that we are seeking to require online for this measure. And so I just want to make that very clear that we're not forcing anybody to make payment online. There still should be an opportunity for them, if they so choose, to go into any treasurer of Guam and make these payments in person, if they so choose, to get that kind of stamped copy that these things were paid. And so again, I just want to be very clear that paying online would be optional. And I understand there is a convenience fee. That's something that was brought up by the director. And so again, Mr. Chair, I just want to put that on the record and be very clear about that for everybody who's listening. Sujos Masi.
Thank you. Daphne, simple question they asked earlier, how many folks file online and how many walk in? What are the percentage? Out of, let's say, 200,000 people, 50% file online, 50% walk in? Can you give us a
So
rough...
for the 2017 year, the data that we have is here we go. I can tell you we have...
You mentioned 140,000 was filing online? And about how many?
So about, for 2017, we already had about 56%, almost 57% of the filers filing online, and that's an average of about 12,000 filings per month. And again, this is not actual BPT returns. This is actually, they're counting, as I understand it, counting the lines. So like whether it's line 1, is it service, rental other. So it's all those lines. We had an average of 12,031 lines that were filed online on average, and that equates to about 57%. That's for 2017. Now, for 2018 and 2019, we're still working to address and finalize those numbers. So I don't have final numbers yet for 2018 and 2019, Mr. Chair.
All right. I know that in the past I pursued mandatory filing. And this one is just making it a requirement to start filing it online. And I know my colleagues brought up cost. I'd like to remind our colleagues that there's $6 million in CARES that's going towards revenue and tax to help you electronically. So a lot of the costs related to revenue and tax should be automatically eliminated and taken care of. I mean, a lot of things can fix things that you have problems with today. On the kiosks, I know for a fact, some of my colleagues have pretty much probably haven't seen the revenue and tax, but there's an area there that in the past years, there was a setup to be a kiosk. It just never got off the ground because they never were able to hire folks for it. If I'm correct, there's something like 10 computers there. And as the years go by, even if the computer's not on, it just got old. So with that has been in the motion with revenue and tax. Convenience fee, it was asked earlier. If you file online, you don't pay convenience fee. If you walk in, you have to at the treasurer. Or are you saying if you file online and you walk in to pay, you don't pay the convenience, that 3% or whatever percentage?
If you pay online by credit card, or if you pay by credit card when you go to do the treasurer, there's a convenience fee that's assessed, right? So if you file online, but you don't pay online, but you go to the treasurer and you pay by check or cash, there will be no convenience fee. So there's only that convenience fee that's passed on at the time or when people make payments by credit card or debit card.
Okay. Are you aware of previous OPA reports that reported that the convenience fee that has been imposed on the people of Guam is so little versus the amount of money that's received, and by not charging convenience fees for everyone, it will actually it'll get more money into the pockets of the government of Guam versus paying somebody to process a card just to and let the government just absorb it. I mean, my understanding from the OPA report in the past, I don't know if you read it, it's something like over $200 million processing of revenue and tax, or Treasurer of Guam, the convenience fees only accounting for about $3 or $4 million. Are you aware of that?
No, Mr. Chair, I haven't read that public auditor's report on that amount.
You might have access to that because that's something that I've always looked at. It's not about costing the government money, funds, but the people of Guam are the ones that's paying for it. And it just coincidentally, where's that money going to is for somebody that's processing a credit card fee. I don't pay a convenience fee when I go to Cost You Less. I don't pay a convenience fee when I go to any other store, but only the government of Guam. And that's something I'm not very comfortable with. I just want to make that very clear. We shouldn't have to pay the government to process our credit card when other retail stores don't charge us. Okay, so that being said, you had reservation October 20th, ma'am. What is the estimated you think? You don't like January? What month are you looking at?
As I mentioned, October 2020 probably is not
it's too close.
Practical at this time. I was perhaps suggesting if we're allowed 60 to 90 days, that would probably bring us to January or February 2021. And I think that's probably more realistic, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we'll use that date. And then the other areas that you brought up, once you submit the, it's on page 2 on the bill, the day of the implementation of mandatory electronic filing of monthly returns. You're looking at doing an education campaign, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And a tutorial? You know, when I was over there at the compliance branch, I did that to do the ABC. I did a education campaign to all the bars for about 6 to almost 1 year. And it actually educated them to the point where when the ABC folks walk into the bars, they had no excuse. When we shut you down because you knew what the costs were going to be. So you're looking at educate. At least we can say it'll be implemented. This is the time to learn. If you're a new business, accept it because we're moving forward. It's not going to be, there's no more education. That's part of applying for a business license. Okay, ma'am. Appreciate your testimony. That being said, Senator Lee, the author of the bill, do you have anything else you wanted to, before I close the this public hearing?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to thank you again for hearing this bill and also for your continued leadership on this issue. I'd like to note for the record that this, a similar measure was introduced by you last term. Your bill was co-sponsored by Senator Dennis Rodriguez, and this idea was also floated by Senator Jim Espaldon last term, just in an attempt to increase efficiency and over time reduce costs to the government of Guam. So I just want to reiterate that especially during this COVID-19 emergency, moving government services online makes sense for the health of our community. By making this change to how BPT is filed, we can also help businesses save precious time and resources while further improving our tax collections during a depressed economic period and beyond. We've heard from our director today that moving the BPT filing process online will increase efficiency at DRT by replacing the manual data entry process done at the department for thousands of taxpayers. So I also want to thank Senator Sabina for asking about the possibility of using the CARES funds for these efforts. Senator Kelly, you mentioned the benefit to our community as this process is shifted online, again, increasing efficiency, electronic record keeping, eliminating some of the paper pushing, and also decreasing wait times for the folks in line at DRT. So those are some really great points. Sujos Maasi, again, to the director for being present today. And I really appreciate you taking the time to work with us to bring this much needed upgrade to our BPT policy and procedure. I also just want to thank you so much for, again, making yourself available to us as policymakers, but also to the community in general, just by being out there on the radio and available to our media partners, answering questions. And you're always so great at that, Daph, so I really appreciate that. Sujos Maasi, to you and to, of course, your team at DRT for your continued work during this challenging time amid this pandemic. So again, just Sujos Maasi, Mr. Chair, and to my colleagues for their participation in this hearing. I really look forward to making some of the changes that we discussed today and moving this measure forward. Sujos Maasi.
Thank you, Senator Lee. And thank you, my colleagues, for the questions you have asked. The committee will conclude this public hearing on Bill 370-35 COR. The committee will continue to receive testimonies. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com. This is Zeus Masi for your attendance and participation in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. This public hearing on Bill number 370-35 COR is now adjourned at 2:54. Thank you and have a nice day.